Hey up everybody and welcome back. Well, nothing much to report from last week, so we can just get straight on with the bike. And this week we're going to look at measuring up to get the rim offset to the hubs. The rear one we'll do actually in the bike because we've got to work from the chain and so on. But the front one is going to be just a little bit of measurement and maths. So going to do that, and then I made up a couple of stands which I'll show you. You may remember I mentioned that basically an 18-inch wheel with a 4-inch trials tyre on and a 21-inch wheel with a 275 trials tyre, I think it's 275, 2.75 that is, are both 14-inch radius. So I've made up a couple of stands that I can just put either wheel spindle or a long bolt in where the wheels are going to go, stand it on that, and they're going to set the bike at 14 inches. They'll be handy for other trials jobs. So when we've got our hubs measured and marked and everything, we'll stand the bike on those, and that will give us the way it would stand on its wheels, and we can look at things like the footrests and so on. So let's get on. We'll do the rear hub first. Now then, I've put the hub in, so we'll start doing our measurements. Now, as always, you'll remember from the other trials bike and what have you, if you're going to measure something like this where things are a distance apart and things are not, for instance, this is a Tiger Cub hub in a Royal Enfield frame. Fortunately, with the Royal Enfield engine, because if you remember with the Monster, we had a Yamaha 650 hub wheel in a Norton Commando frame with the Yamaha XS750 engine, so nothing really was right. But here at least we've got the right engine for this frame and swinging arm. So because we're going to start doing some measurements, we need a fixed point, we need a datum. Well, the one thing we have done that connects the engine to the rear wheel is we've got our chain line right. So we know that the inside of this sprocket corresponds right to there. We checked that, we measured it, we made the spaces, so this is there. So first of all, let me just show you something which goes back to wheels and about how people lace them up. Now, with most vertically split engines, with the British ones anyway, certainly the singles, you'll find that the cases are almost invariably split on the centre line of the engine. So here, there's our centre line on the, I know you're a little bit distant, but I'm just checking here. There's our centre line on the cases, and it's right on the centre of the front down tube. So there we go again. Now what I wanted to show you before we set to a measurement is I'm just going to lay that on that centre line, and you see that that is nowhere near the centre of the hub. So if someone just took this, put a rim on and then spoked it up so that the rim was centered on the hub, the rim would actually be over here somewhere. And that's why we need to measure the offset. Okay, so we're going to use our chain line as the datum. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'll bring you in closer to show you. Now then, we are going to use this case split. I don't think you can see it much because of the reflection on here, but the case is split there. Now, getting behind this sprocket isn't easy, but we know the thickness of the sprocket, so it's not a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a straight edge on there, another three-handed job, and we're going to measure from there to this split. And that measurement is 3 1/8 inch. Yep, 3 1/8. 3 1/8. Okay, let's move round here a bit. Now the reason we can use that measurement to the inside of the sprocket on the hub is because the chain line is right, the inside of the sprocket is going to be here on there, the little ridge and that. So from the centre line to this brake drum is the measurement we've already got, which goes to there, plus this extra bit, which is 11/32 of an inch. All right, so we'll add that 11/32 to the 2 3/4, and then we've got from the center of the rim to the edge of there, which is where we're going to put our straight edge for the offset. Right, the chart says 0.344, and that obviously is 2.750. So this is going to be 490. It's almost 3 1/16. So that is how far off the edge of the brake drum is going to be from the central line of the wheel. Now then, we have a minor problem here. Let me do a drawing. Here's a cross section. Oh, my pen's giving out. Of a rim. Okay. Now the WM numbers that we all use for rims are actually a measurement from here to here. It's the inside. So we want that outer one, because if our brake drum is here, where is it? If our brake drum is here, like so, we are going to measure, we're going to lay a straight edge across, well, that's straight, isn't it? We're going to lay a straight edge across there, and we're going to measure this distance. So what we need to know is the width of that, because what we have is this distance to the centre line, which obviously is a bit subjective, trying to measure that, because where exactly is the centre on this curved piece? We want a nice easy spot to measure, which is going to be, of course, the edge of the rim. But I've got it written down here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. A WM1, for instance, on the outside, on a B50 wheel, so it's like a Jones chrome rim, is 2.35 inches. But the aluminium wheel in my Beast Trials bike, which is basically a WM1 as well, is only 2 inches. The chrome rim is very much thicker here, so it gives the overall width more. So I can't tell the wheel builders what the offset is until they tell me how wide the rim is. So I'll get in touch with Buchanan's, ask them how wide the rim is, and then I can give them this distance here. All right, so that's one problem. We also have another problem. Let me show you that. The brake plate has a lip on it, which when it goes on, goes over there a little bit. So we don't have 3, so if we have our sprocket going right there, thickness of 3/8 of an inch, see, that's, as we measured, that's barely, it's not even 3/8. So when I get the sprocket, what I'm going to have to do is turn a piece out the centre, so it's got to be 3/8 thick here, but there it's got to be less than 3/8. That's minor, but I just thought we'd mention it. It's something you've got to bear in mind when you're putting that on. Alright, so that's the rear brake drum. Let's look at the front brake drum. Well, not the brake drum, the hub. So now we come to the front hub. Now, of course, really we don't have to do anything with this one, because we know that when we measured it, this hub is dead centre. Remember, it was 3/4 of an inch from here to the fork leg and 3/4 of an inch from here to the fork leg. So if the people at Buchanan's just build this up with it centred on the centre there, everything will be fine. But what we will do is I'll take a couple of measurements just so I can let them know that. So as I said, we know that from there to there, if that's 3/4 and that's 3/4, half of that distance is going to be the centre of the forks. So let's just get a measurement for that. So we'll get up against that one and we'll measure from inside to inside. and that is 3 3/4. Okay, 3 3/4 inches. So half of that is going to be 1 1/2, and 3/8 is 1 7/8. So the centre of this is going to be 1 7/8. So the only other thing we need to know is the distance from that face, which is where again we're going to put our straight edge across, to the inside of there. And that is, it's not millimetres, it is 3/8. So 1 7/8 plus 3/8 is 1 10/8, which is 2 1/4. So from the centre here to there is going to be 2 1/4 inches. Alright, so that's both hubs sorted. Now I can send these off to Buchanan's. I can tell them the offset, and as I say, I've got to get in touch with them first to find out how wide the rim is. So that's those done. So now let's move on to something else, because as I say, the reason I wanted to get these done is because I've got to send these off and they'll be gone for a while, so we can do a lot while they're away. I'll put the bike up on the stands I made. So as I said, these give me 14 inches front and back, which is basically, you know, give or take a ½ inch here and there for the amount of air you've got in and how heavy you weigh and so on. What the wheels will be. So that gives us, that's got the engine nice and vertical, and it's giving us here 10.5 inches of ground clearance. Now we're going to have a bash plate underneath, so we're probably looking at around 10 inches unladen. Now of course, as soon as we've got the actual weight of the engine in, since we don't have the barrel and all that on, we don't have a crank in, which is going to be a lot, and then a rider on it, it's going to drop down. So we're probably going to have at riding about 8 inches of ground clearance, which for a bike like this is fine. And we are looking at well, it's 53.5 inches, which is a bit on the long side, but hey, for what it's designed to do, that should be fine. As I say, with the second engine and gearbox, what we're going to do is we're going to build a bike and try and get it more to the way I want it. And let's have a look at the forks. So we're about 1.5 inches more in wheelbase than the BSA is, and for this we've got 26.4. Again, this is going to change a little bit with the weights on it, so say 26 and a half, well, it's going to 26.6, so say 26 and a half. Excuse me, the Beezer, which is standing over here, is around 25, so we're about 1.5 degrees different on there. Now then, the next thing I want to sort out is where I'm going to put the footrests. Now, as I mentioned, when I built the Beezer, I had a bunch of trials bikes in here, and I sort of laid out a little spreadsheet and measured things like the wheelbase and all that sort of stuff. And the one thing that was noticeable was that they all had their footrests just behind and just below, well, just behind the pivot point of the swinging arm and round about on a line through the wheel spindles. So for us, where have I put my tip? There it is. If we're going through the wheel spindles, don't do that. Alright, now behave yourself. Let's try it the other way around. About there, okay, which is 13 inches off the ground. So the ones on the beezer I put just below that line through the wheel spindles. I like to have a little bit of weight below them, and it also wants to be back. So really we're going to put our footrests about here. Now I have somewhere, back here somewhere, there they are, a pair of footrests. Type you used to get from Sammy Miller. I'm sure that you can get them from Feckett Off-Road or, I don't know, In Motion, people like that. I'm sure the people that make these didn't stop making them just because Sammy Miller products changed hands, and I don't think they made them exclusively for Sammy Miller products. These are the Delta type ones. So let's have a look. US Air Force standard equipment. Came from my daughter. So there's the little brackets. I wonder why they're black. So they're going to go about on there like that. Now we can't just clag them on, because what we have to take into account is the swing of the kickstart. Right, let me mount these in this thing. I can never remember which way they go, because as you can see they're at an angle. That looks like it. So when they're folded up, actually that's lots of space for the kickstart to swing, so we can just basically put them on the frame. I know when I did, well, my BSA actually, on the B25 frame, they've sort of got to go in here a little bit, otherwise the kickstart won't clear. Unless you get one of those cranked out ones. And you know something? I look at them, they must work, but I look at the way they come all the way out here, and I think, well, that's a hell of a lot of when you were kicking it, of pulling it this side. It's putting a lot of strain on that shaft. Whereas if it's just straight up and down with the standard kickstart, that's fine. And I don't find it a big thing to have to fold it up to kickstart it. So that's going to be about right there. Now of course it's round on there, so what I'm going to do is make a little plate that this will weld onto. So we'll weld a plate on and have a support behind it to take up the curve of the tube, and then we'll weld that onto there. And I've marked where I want to put these, and I've cut out a piece of plate that has a little curve on to go around there. Now one thing to remember with these is that you don't want to put that on square. It has to be at an angle, because they fold at an angle. You see, they're designed that if it gets hit, it folds up out of the way, and it wouldn't do that if it folded up straight. It would get hit and it would just go like that. But the idea is that when that's on with the footrest level, it'll fold up out of the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that on there, out like that, and then that on there about like that. Now get our footrest level and get it on our line, and behind that. It doesn't have to be a long way behind, but that should be just about nice. So let me pull the TIG weld around. We'll get this tacked on, check that it's good, and then we'll weld it on. Right, let's see if we can get this tacked on. And it's got to be on square, which it isn't. Let me put another little tack on the bottom. I've got a feeling that will just snap if I try to bend that out. Bit of muck in there, but sanded all that off nicely. Okay, get a little hammer. Loose. Okay, that looks good. So let me put some more weld into this, and then we'll see about actually welding that on. I'm going to shape it when I've got this on, because I've also got to put some pieces in the back, because you know you're putting a lot of pressure down here. That's going to bend. So what we need is a little gusset in behind it so that that pressure going back is taken up. Now I've run some weld up here to put that plate on good and tight. Then I've offered this up with that there and scribed it, and now I've got it clamped on, so that will go on like thus, and that should be level. But I'll just tack it first to make sure, so I can take the clamp off and get the footrest back in. And then if it's good, we can weld that in. That's got that tacked on. So let's see if the footrest is still where it's supposed to be. Okay. Nice and level. It's not this end's not dropped down because we've gone round too far there. I see people riding trials bikes and their footrests are down here somewhere. How they keep their feet on, I don't know. That'll fold up nicely out of the way. Okay, let's get this welded along the top and the bottom a little bit. And then when we take everything off and I can lay the bike over, I'll finish all the welding. And as I say, we'll shape it a little bit at the bottom then, and put our brackets, our little gusset pieces in behind. And there it is, welded on the top and a little bit of weld in the bottom, so it's not going to go anywhere. That in. Alright, there we go. Holds up nicely. Nice and level there. Nice and level there. In fact, I might even knock it up slightly just to give me a little bit of tip up there before I weld the back and do everything. So that side's good. Let me go and do the same on the other side. I've already cut a piece here, so I'll go and tack that on. And as I say, it's just a duplicate of doing this, and then I'll show you when both footrests are on. There we go, both footrests on. As I say, I'm going to tidy up these mounting plates or what have you, but they're on there fine, they're level, they're equally spaced, so everything's good there. So that's it for this week, and next thing on this is the most difficult part of any project. I've got to buy some stuff for it. So let me get on the phone. I've got to order stuff for the engine so we can have a go at that, and a pair of rear suspension units, and as I say, I've got to send off those hubs and get them built up onto new rims. I'm going to go with alloy rims. Should have chrome rims to get it exactly right, but to be honest, the thing's going to be heavy enough as it is. I don't want to add another few pounds just from using chrome rims to make it look exactly right. So that's it for now. Off you go and enjoy yourselves.